Hey, good morning everybody. It's Kyle Dahl. I'm a nature educator here in Redding in the state of Jefferson, Northern California. And in this video I wanted to show you guys how to make your own wildcrafted beer from ingredients that you can just find probably right outside your door. Alright guys, so if you're tuning in to learn how to make your own wildcrafted brew, the first thing you should know about is what is a wildcrafted brew anyways. Well, what it is basically a kind of beer in a way. So everybody knows what beer is, you know, it's a alcoholic drink that's flavored with hops. Well, back in the ancient days, they didn't always only used to use hops. Nowadays, pretty much only people use hops for beer, but back in the day, they used to use any kind of herbs, several different kinds of herbs depending on, you know, the location and all that sort of thing. So what I'm going to show you is one of the older traditional ways to make one of these brews. And it's really simple. The basic ingredients is water, sugar, herbs, and yeast. And that yeast is the real key, because the yeast is what is going to either carbonate it or make it an alcoholic beverage. So what is yeast anyways? It's just a microscopic organism that eats sugar and converts it into alcohol, and then it will also breathe oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide, and that's where you get the carbonation, the bubbles happening in your brew. So those four ingredients: water, herbs, sugar, yeast. Now one of the most important things is you're gonna have to prep a yeast starter. Now you can buy commercial yeast from the winery. That's what most, you know, home brewers do, but you don't have to. You can find yeast out in the nature, and I'll go ahead and show you how I find and collect harvest yeast for making brews. Alrighty, so I'm out here on the farm here in Redding, and behind me you can see one of the wild grapes that grows here. We don't take care of it, we don't water it, we don't do anything. It's just a wild grape. There's several. You could even go in the woods around here and walk along the Sacramento River and you can find plenty of wild grapes. And the reason I use grapes is because it's a really great source of wild yeast. Wild yeast likes berries a lot, so if you're gonna wanna, you know, find something in the nature to use to collect the yeast, fruit is your best bet. And now you can use grapes, you could use elderberries, you can use plums, figs, just about almost any fruit. And you can know that it's the wild yeast because you will see like a white dust on the fruit itself. And I'll show you here with these grapes. So here's some of the grapes that are just growing here wild. You can kind of see on some of the grapes there's like a dusty substance. That right there is the yeast. That is what you want to collect. Now these grapes have been kind of dried up, but they will still work. As you can still see that white dust on there. Then they're still good for harvesting wild yeast. So I'll go ahead and collect some of these grapes and I'll show you how to make a yeast starter for making your own wildcrafted brew. Okay, so here's my wild grapes. You can see some of them are actually raisins, but that is fine because there is still the yeast on them, you can see. And it's a good idea to go through your grapes if that's what you choose to use. See, there's like spider webs in there, so I don't really want to drink spiders. If you're into that sort of thing, you can leave it, of course. That's a personal preference. But yeah, I just go through, you know, I pull off all the spider webs and make sure there's no bugs in there. I might pull off some of these uglier looking raisins here, the really crispy dried ones. And then yeah, and once the grapes are pretty much ready at that point, then I will show you how to make the solution to harvest the yeast. Okay, so once you got your wild yeast source, then the next thing you're gonna have to do is mix up a solution of 20% sugar to 80% water. Now I like to use these half-gallon jars here. They kind of have little marks in the side here to give me a good idea. And for this batch, I'm using organic cane sugar. And sugar is usually the only ingredient that I have not been able to find in the wild. But this bag here was given to me from a friend. So this batch will be 100% free to make. So yeah, you just kind of pour it in, you know, get roughly 20%. Doesn't have to be perfect. Might as well put all of it since there's not that much. So you put that in there. I usually put the sugar first because it's easier to measure that way. And we've got Mount Shasta spring water here. I'll use to fill this up. And you want to use non-chlorinated water just because the chlorine will actually kill the yeast. And you don't, I mean, obviously you don't want to kill the yeast because that is your best friend. Okay, so once you got that stuff in, you gotta mix it up real good. Okay, once you got your solution here, 20% water, 20% sugar, 80% water, you can simply just take your fruit, put it on in there. I mean, you could take the stems off if you feel like it, but I don't really even bother. Yep, so once it's, you know, you got your grapes in there and or your whatever fruit into your solution here, give it another good shake. And then you're going to want to be able to store it in such a way that the gas can escape, because there's going to be, you know, bubbles forming in here. So what you can do is you can either just leave the lid on real loose, or what I like to do I'll take a coffee filter and just close the ring around the coffee filter like that. Now that will allow air to escape, but no bugs can get in here and contaminate it. Okay, so after you got your solution all mixed up, you simply need to set it in an area that's between like 55 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. And once a day you come in, check on it, give it a good smell. You should be able to smell the yeast. And give it a good shake. Make sure you're oxygenating that water. So yeast breathes in oxygen just like we do, and it breathes out carbon dioxide. Now that's going to be how you carbonate this drink. And then the yeast will just, you know, eat the sugars, and in the yeast start, it will start to expand the yeast population, and then you can take that population and put a little bit into your brew to start it. So behind me you can see here is the yeast starter that we just made today. This is one that I made a couple days ago, and you can see here, I'll show you. You can see those bubbles forming. That is a great sign. That means the yeast is starting to activate. When it is super bubbly, that means your yeast is really active and it's ready. Now from this point to what we just made until it's ready to use, it should be, I would say, anywhere from 3 days to a week or two, just depending on the temperature. Cooler temperature is going to slow the yeast down. Warmer temperatures are going to speed the process up. So here, right next to it, we have a brew that I made. So I took a yeast starter, I made a sweet tea with herbs that I found. This particular one is made with horehound that we have growing around on the farm. And then you use that same ratio. You use 20% sugar, 80% herbal tea. You mix that together. Then you take a little bit of the yeast starter and pour it into here. I usually will split the yeast starter into 2 of these half gallons. So I end up with about a little bit less than a gallon of brew each batch. So once you have it in this kind of a jar, you let it sit with the coffee filter, the gas escape, for a few days. Then once it has sufficient fermentation, you're happy with it, you taste it, you smell it, then you could put it into one of these pop top bottles here. Now these pop top bottles are designed to hold the pressure inside of here, so there's no gas escape. Now when the yeast is breathing out that carbon dioxide, if it doesn't have anywhere to escape, it will just go back into the liquid and make your liquid carbonated, just like a soda. So after a few days, when you put it in the pop top bottle, it will become a carbonated drink. Now if you just want a carbonated drink, you just want like a natural soda, not something alcoholic, then you put this in the fridge and slow that fermentation process down. And you can drink it and it's ready to go, and it will be like a natural fizzy drink. If you set it out in the warmth for a little while longer, while the yeast continues to ferment the liquid, it will become alcoholic. At that point you can put it in the pop top and you can put it in the fridge. But if you leave it out in a jar like this, if I left this jar out here with the gas escaping for a month or month and a half, 2 months, it will actually turn from beer into vinegar that you can then use for cooking different meals or flavoring salads or whatever you want to do with it. Alright guys, just to explain a little bit about the herbs that you can use for your wild brew. Just come here, take a look at my collection. This is what I call my medicine cabinet. But you can use a lot of different kind of herbs. I got these. These are stinging nettles I got along the Sacramento River. Lemon balm, mint, yarrow is another good one that just grows naturally. Horehound, this grows all along in Turtle Bay. And then elderflowers, which grow along the Sacramento River also. And then even rose petals I got at one of my clients' properties. So all these herbs that just grow really easily around here, and you can see the wide diversity. Just experiment with what kind of herbs you like. You like any particular herb's tastes, just give it a try and see. And yeah, I mean, it's very interesting and fun to experiment with the different flavors. You could use all kinds of things. You could use madrone bark or manzanita bark. You can use blackberry leaf. Of course, that's not hard to find in the woods. I mean, I think the possibilities are pretty endless. Just experiment and see what you can come up with. Alright guys, well thanks for watching the video. I hope you learned a little bit of something. Thank you so much for your support here on Patreon. It's going to help me continue to make these videos and educate people, and really help to connect people to their natural world around them. And it's my belief that if we are more intimately connected with the natural world around us, then we will work hard to preserve that and take care of that for our children and our children's children. So thank you so much for your support here. I hope that now you have everything that you need to go out and make yourself your own wild brew. And of course, always be careful when opening it. As the pressure builds up, it's kind of like champagne sometimes. That could be part of the fun, right? Thank you for watching.